morning. Welcome to another edition of the SportsIntel.com podcast. It's a Friday morning. We are into week 3 of the NFL season, and I am high on painkillers. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the best podcast we're going to do all year. I'm dealing with a slight medical issue, and I was prescribed the good stuff. So if I suddenly start wiping my face indiscriminately, just ignore me. But seriously, folks, we are back for another look at the National Football League, and we will also, I'm sure, touch on the 4-dimension level chess game that's being played by the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. They have the Lakers set up. Didn't they see this coming? But we'll talk about that later. First off, Vic, you want to take a bow? You want to pat yourself on the back, Mr. 49 under?
It's been a good week, man. It's been a good week. That's all I can say. But it's a long game, and
it sure was, huh?
We got to keep playing the game. But it was a good, nice little under. I was scared about some Minshew magic garbage touchdown, but you heard me yelling from your house in another
pick there at the end. Big pick.
Yep. So let's do it.
Yeah, I have to say, when it was 21-7 at the end of the third quarter, I'm like, no, he's got no shot. There's no way. No way this thing isn't going over 49. But there you go. That's why they call it gambling, right? So a good job. And that was actually, Fitzmagic, man. That's why they call him Fitzmagic. He just is he going to be like George Blanda? Those old clips of George Blanda, he's like 65 years old, kicking field goals and throwing touchdowns for the Raiders.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't kill the guy. He's like Jason, you can't kill him.
He's only 37. As old as he looks. He's only 37.
He just looks like, he looks like the Marlboro Man, but look, I kind of like this Miami team. I feel like they've got a good running back situation now. This Myles Gaskins looks pretty solid, but then they can hit you with Jordan Howard on the goal line. And again, joke all you want about Fitz and the beard. He's got that Erik beard going. Like, Erik, who's got the better beard, you or Fitzpatrick?
I'll give it to him only because he won.
There you go. I think he's taking after you, Erik. I think he saw the podcast, and he said, "I got to have that Erik beard."
That must be it.
Yeah,
he was on fire that night. That's for sure. He was able to hit almost every target he wanted. And we can only assume it wasn't a fluke. We'll find out, in the next game. They got off to such a rough start that people were starting to roll their eyes and were beginning to think it might be a repeat of last year. But after what happened last night, people woke up, and he's a new man. The Dolphins are going to do a lot better than people had thought.
That's what I think. Their first 2 games were in the division against the 2 teams that we expect to be, really good teams. So now they get a chance to play some teams that are maybe a little more on their level. And I don't think there's any reason why they can't. They get the Jets twice. You got to figure they're going to win both of those games. I think that's a team you might want to keep an eye on. Vic, talk to me a little bit about what we got coming up. What's standing out to you on Sunday and Monday? What are you liking at that point?
Yeah, so I'm actually, after this pod, we're right on my favorite pick and why I like those games. But the Giants stick out to me. That was a game we talked about earlier this week, if you remember. But Jimmy Garoppolo, is out, and George Kittle is out. Giants got to fly east, fly back west, and now fly back east, I believe. And so it's going to be tough for them. Or they're staying in West Virginia. I think they're staying. I'll write it up for Sports Intel once I do some research on that. But just the public's on the Niners, but this is not the usual Niners squad, right? They're missing like 80% of their pass rush, and they got key injuries. They're a little nervous about playing on this field again just because of what happened last week. And the Giants have been a lot closer. They could have beat the Steelers and they could have beat the Bears, in my opinion. They should have beat the Bears. They marched it down at the end. So I like the Giants. That's one of my games. I like the Saints. I know, Jeff, you don't like the Saints, but I think this is a good spot for them. No. Coming off of a loss where they looked really bad. So you're going to get a lot of recency bias where everyone's on the Packers. But the Saints at home are tough to beat. And then I'm also kind of looking at a couple more games, the Eagles and the Browns. But those are two teams I can never get right, and that just always blow covers. So I don't know about them. And then my Bears play the Falcons. The Falcons as favorites are usually not a good bet. And Julio's hobbled this week with some hamstring stuff. So let's see. Once we jump off of this, I'm going to write up my picks for the week, and you can check them out on sportsintel.com. But that's what I'm thinking early. What about you guys? Eric, how about you? Any games that stick out?
When we started talking about the new season, I said that the Seahawks weren't going to do very well. They've been a little surprising so far, and they're coming up in a game against the Cowboys, which should actually be a decent contest. But I think the Seahawks will be able to pull off another win. Dallas doesn't have a really good pass rush, at least not so far this year. And the Seahawks will probably be able to pull it off.
I have a couple of underdogs that I like this week. I like the Washington football team in Cleveland. I'm not sold. I know Cleveland looked good in the game. They haven't played now for 10 days. They look good in that game against Cincinnati, but that's Cincinnati. Although I'm going to talk about Cincinnati in a minute. I'm a believer in the Washington pass rush, and I see that as an opportunity to force Baker Mayfield into doing the Baker Mayfield things that he does sometimes with some bad picks. And so I have a feel. Let's put it this way: I have a feeling that Washington can keep that game close, which is all you need them to do, because they are 5.5? I believe that line is. 5.5.
See some sixes around.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that I don't see the Cleveland offense functioning well against this defense, which I just think I don't know. I mean, maybe Cleveland will win the game. I don't want to say that Washington's going to win this outright, but I think they can keep it close enough that I think they can cover that line. And if that line, the more, as you said, some have a 6, so you could even see maybe even a 7 here and there. That's a lot. That's a lot. Again, I think the Washington line maybe just a little bit underrated, but again, it's Mayfield. Against a good quarterback and against a good, mature, for lack of a better term, quarterback, maybe it's not as much of a factor. But I could see, knowing. We've all seen Baker Mayfield more or less lose his mind, and when he's under pressure. So I see that. I like that one, and I actually like Cincinnati in a similar spot. We talked the other day about Carson Wentz and what's wrong with Carson Wentz, right? And are his problems going to get cured this week? Is the offensive line still an issue? And Cincinnati's defense is decent. They can get after the quarterback, and I like what I see from Joe Burrow. And maybe this will be finally the week that he gets a win. He's actually he's come close. We don't know what would have happened in overtime week 1. Maybe they would have lost anyway. But the kicker makes the field goal at the end of the game against the Chargers. They got a shot to win that game, and they had a shot to win. Against Cleveland. So I think maybe this is the week that Joe Burrow finally picks up his first win. And again, that's another one where the line is up around 6.5. So I like Cincinnati as in an upset there against the Philly team that's just not looking sharp. So those would be my dogs of the week. I don't know if anybody sees anybody thinks that that's the drugs talking, or if I'm making any sense. Those picks.
No, I think you're right.
You make good points. Those are two games that normally, if it was any other team than the Browns and the Eagles, I would take because it fits a lot of the stuff that I do and normally. But to your point, I think the Browns are a squad that are like better as dogs. There's some teams that are better as underdogs than they are as favorites, right? And we saw Cleveland last week against the Bengals. Perfect scenario. You got against a rookie quarterback, short week at home. I mean, any good team would have blown out the Bengals in that spot. But they let the Bengals have a back door, right? And that's just the Browns. So I can never lay a touchdown with the Browns until they show me that they can be a team that can cover a high spread. I like taking the Browns as underdogs when they're that 3, 4, 5 point kind of range at home, like dangerous home dogs. But I can't do it, man. Any other squad I would lay this week because I think again it's a good situational spot, but I can't lay 7 points against the Skins pass rush, like you said. That's pretty solid. And then the Eagles, again, that's another team that fits a lot of the stuff that I normally do. But we've talked about this, on Monday and a couple times. Their O-line, you brought it up, Jeff, is just horrendous. And so until I see Carson Wentz play well and the Eagles kind of get back on track, I can't lay that big of a number against the Bengals. And we saw how what I liked about Burrow last week is that Bengals squad, yeah, they're young, but something different about them. They didn't give up. They had some poise, and they look like they're a team on the rise. And so I'm not going to be touching those two games. I'll skip those two.
Vic, let me ask you a question. Someone that looks at the odds and studies it. How much credence do you give to things like, when we talk about narratives, games that are on narrative street? And so I want to go, one other thought on the Washington situation is you have Haskins playing in Cleveland. Does that raise his floor for performance because he's more or less coming back to home, to where he played in college, or at least close enough, do you factor things like that in? Do you look at those like media narratives and is there any utility as far as trying to catch an edge in a game and something like that? Or like, for instance, and you hear all the time, like when a wide receiver complains that he's not getting enough touches, like, does that make you think, okay, well, this offense is going to maybe function a little bit better because they're going to really like target this guy and try to get him in, do those sorts of things factor into your analysis?
No, that's a good question. It does. To me, a quarterback like Haskins, he's young, right? So young guys, when they're put in familiar spots, always usually play better, right? It's a confidence thing with a lot of these younger guys. So, and so when it comes to your second question about receivers, yeah, I look at player props sometimes. If I know a good big dog receiver had a crappy week and they were kind of having some beef on the sideline, and then that during practice all week that quarterback's hyping up his guy, right? He'll be like, for example, like I'll talk about Allen Robinson this week. I think he's going to have a big game because last week he had 3 catches for 33 yards or whatever after the whole week about the contract situation, right? And now this week, every teammate's come out. Nagy's talked about him having a big week. Mitch is like, I got his back. We're going to have a good week. So I think they're going to force feed him the ball. So I would look at some Allen Robinson props this week, for example, to answer your question. And because they're going to try to exploit him a little bit. So I do look at that, man. I look at a ton of different things, right? I consider it like tools in the toolbox. Like I don't just look at like public. I don't look at like reverse line movement, just stats. I try to, when putting together my card, look at all of those things. Like you said, some of these mini narratives, some of the bigger things, everything that I can put together and try to find an edge, I do. And that's literally what I do every day, like all day. That's what I'm doing. If I'm not like messing with my 2 kids, I'm trying to find some good bets for SportsIntel.com. So you got to check us out. But yeah, to answer your question, I do look at those things.
Yeah, and that's something I think we might want to try to actually do on the site. We've sort of talked about it and experimented with a little bit, but I kind of like the idea of having, an article at some point during the week where we look at some of these sort of like, who's chirping in the media and who's got this sort of weird homecoming, or who's got like, it's a coach going against his old team, or, and there's where's the revenge factor? I know certainly in the world of daily fantasy, like that's a huge thing. Like especially in the NBA, like if some players going, like if LeBron is like if the Lakers wind up playing the Heat, right? Like, well, you got that huge revenge narrative of LeBron going up against the Heat. Or say the Celtics wind up getting in, you got Rondo. Like you want to like maybe focus in on Rondo against the Lakers because it's a revenge narrative. And I think those kind of things. I think there is an edge to be found at times with scenarios like that. And I think that's something that we may try to make more of our weekly content. Is try to find those. And anytime you can find an edge like that, you might as well try to exploit it. So we'll see. All right, Eric, we got to ask you the question of the week. NFL question of the week. Is this the week that Cam Newton finally plays a good football game? Does Cam finally earn your respect? What does Cam have to do to get a good review from Erik this week? That's a big game against the Raiders. I feel like that's like a game I would really want to watch this weekend. Is the Raiders going to New England to play the Patriots, two teams that have something to prove for different reasons. But what are your thoughts on that game and what Cam needs to do to win back your trust?
If he can pull off a win, I'll consider giving him a pass, but it's going to take more than just one game and a couple of good plays. He's got to show consistency, for a couple of weeks for anyone really to consider that he's back to the Cam that he used to be. I'm just still not feeling it. I mean, there's no doubt he's got some skill, but he has not started yet this season to really produce at the level that he had shown a few years ago. So, sure, I'll be a little lenient on him if he pulls out a win this weekend, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Vic, do you see this? Is this a trap game? I feel like this might be is this a betting trap game? With all the what's the line right now? Is it 6.5? Patriots by 6.5? Is that right?
You got
Am I right on that? Let's see. I want to take a look. Yeah. Some 5.5. Yeah, it's down to about 5.5. I feel like this is the game that's going to get the most attention this week. I think when I say like, is this a trap game? I think actually I would probably go heavy on the Patriots this week. I feel like asking the Raiders to come east after playing on Monday night, after a hugely emotional win. I know they didn't have anybody in the stands, but still it was their new building. And now to come and play the Patriots coming off a loss, I don't know. I think everyone was like rooting for the Raiders, especially people that hate the Patriots will want the Raiders. So I have a feeling the Patriots, this is going to be like a 48-17 situation, even with Cam. That I could see a big letdown here from the Raiders. I wonder if what's your vibe on where the Raiders are going to be mentally in this game? It just feels like a super duper trap to me.
It definitely feels like a letdown game for the reasons that you stated, right? I mean, short week now. They're coming off this hype win at home in a new stadium against a really good Saints team. So my only small concern, and Eric's going to love this because, like, it's about Cam a little bit. And so the Patriots, to me, are not the Patriots of old just because of their defense, right? They lost a lot of guys because of COVID. And so the Raiders are going to be able to score. So I'm a little nervous about a backdoor cover more than anything. I think the Patriots win this game, and it's going to be one of those games where they're, like, up the whole game, but the Raiders get the ball at the end, and it's going to come down to, like, can they put it in like a garbage touchdown, right? So the line's around 5.5, 6. I'm not going to touch it, but it is a little bit of a letdown spot, Jeff, to your point. I agree. And then you saw the picture of Belichick, right? Everyone's seen it.
Yeah.
He looks like a guy that has literally been sleeping at the stadium studying this stuff. So an upset hoodie after a loss is usually bad news. In years past, this would be like an auto bet for me where I would like max out, especially if Brady was there and they had their defensive guys, right? This would be a no-brainer. But I think the line's a little high for me, especially with that defense. That's my only concern. Because the Raiders, they got the offense, right? Like, they beat a suspect, but Chucky and Carr, they're just going to air it out. They don't really care. If they're last year, I remember they were down like against the Packers. There were so many games where they'd be down like 21, but they have a couple of garbage touchdowns at the end, and they would kind of be in a lot of games. So that's the only thing that concerns me and why I'm probably staying away from this game.
Did I see? I thought I heard him mention it on the Monday night game. This is the first time the Raiders are going to be at Foxborough since the Tuck Rule game.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I don't know if that's accurate, but it might be. I mean, they probably only play each other. How many often do they even play each other? And maybe the most recent time they played each other was in Oakland. Wouldn't that? How about that? How John Gruden going back to Foxborough? It's a shame Brady's not there. You know, I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like. I'm sure it's not going to snow. But talk about a narrative. See, that to me, like, would be interesting. Like, if that's really the case, and I didn't look it up to see if they were. Steve Levy sometimes says some things during the game, and you gotta like fact check them. But now that's a narrative. See, that would be like, is he like that? That would be the one thing that I think could help the Raiders this week. Is I would imagine John Gruden is not going to let them let down because he's going to remind them of what it means to him. After what happened. I mean, that whole organization. I know none of the players. Nobody's 20 years ago, but I would imagine he'll have them fired up for that. But yeah, I think they said that this is the first time the Raiders will be at what is now Gillette Stadium, because they actually that was the last game ever at the old Foxborough Stadium, was the Tuck Rule game. So that'll be fun too. I mean, I'm sure they'll spend a lot of time. You'll hear Jim and Tony talking about that a lot, I'm sure. I assume they're going to be there for that one. I would have to think that would be their game. All right, quick. I want to just touch on something we've talked in the past. We a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was even last week, when the Big Ten announced that they were coming back to play, and one of the things that we all talked about and debated was, all right, well, what is this going to do to the Pac-12? And we got our answer last night. And I don't know. And Erik, I want to ask you first, like, surprised, not surprised that the Pac-12 suddenly realized that they could play football again. I know we were concerned. I know you were concerned that there was a political element to it, especially in the state of California. But obviously they, money talks, I guess, right? At the end of the day.
And that's just it. That's what's driving this without a doubt. The Pac-12 would be, the lone wolf if they stayed away and could only sit on the sidelines while the Big Ten and ACC and everyone else came back into action. So they really had their hands tied. They had to come back after seeing the movement that's been going on the past couple of weeks. So I'm glad. I mean, it's a good thing for the athletes. It's a good thing for all of the conferences in general. So it's going to be a good year. It's really nice to see that things are finally able to start turning around.
I know the campuses in general and the student body situation in general in a lot of these schools is not good. There's a lot of outbreaks. We're dealing with it. We had a huge controversy here in San Diego over the last week or so because there's so many cases at San Diego State that it almost plunged the entire city, where we were going to have to go back into what they call the purple zone, which is like everything gets shut down. And it's not really because anyone in the city of San Diego is doing anything wrong, but because all these kids in San Diego, like kids that don't even live in San Diego, right? They all come to San Diego State, they get sick, and the whole city has to pay the price for it. It wound up not happening. And of course, I thought it was funny that, within hours of the Pac-12 announcing they're going to play, all of a sudden the Mountain West is like, oh yeah, we're going to play too.
Yeah.
Oh gee, what a shock. But it seems like, again, and I know, look, it's not foolproof. I know, Notre Dame's not playing this weekend because they've had an outbreak, but well, let me ask you this: either one of you guys, we're in week 3 of the NFL, and there hasn't been a single COVID situation at all. Surprise? I mean, baseball hasn't had a problem now for like a month. Like, I think, like, are we at the point as far as the teams are concerned and the leagues are concerned that they have it figured out and there aren't going to be many more COVID-related interruptions between now and the end of the year? Or, I mean, are sports safe at this point?
I think the NFL and the SEC, for example, they have so much money, right? And they have the ability to do the rapid testing, those little showers when they walk in through the stadium, the practice facilities. And I think it's like the country in a way, right? Like you got these big monsters, and then you got these smaller schools that have like all these outbreaks and the games are getting canceled, right? And so I think the NFL is fine because of the money, right? And I think the SEC is going to be fine because of the money and all of the different resources they have. But I think we're still going to continue to see some smaller schools and conferences and college especially keep getting postponed. We're seeing that since the start, right? Like every week. Yes. So it's a resource thing, rapid daily testing, just the money that they have, the ability to do all of this stuff. And so to answer your question, I think the NFL is going to be fine. I mean, let's see what happens when flu season comes around, I guess. That's kind of the only biggest concern for everyone, whether it is sports or life. Like, is there going to be a second wave when like flu season comes back? I mean, who knows? Let's hope not, and let's hope sports can keep doing their thing. But the NFL is definitely, and the SEC is more equipped, I feel like, than a lot of these smaller, lower level leagues, and I think those are going to be fine. And the MLB, their plan is literally come October for the playoffs to go into the bubbles, right?
Right.
Yeah. When like flu season is going to hit, for example. So I think they got a solid plan. They've been good, like kind of canceling games, quarantining, postponing, and we've talked about this ad nauseum since the start of all this stuff, and it's just money, right? Like at the end of the day, like these things are too big to like take down, and so they're gonna come up with ways to like keep it going and postpone if they have to, but get the games in because again, it's billions of dollars, and cities depend on this stuff, and so. Let's see. But to answer your question, I think we're going to be good with the NFL and like bigger conferences.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually kind of at the point I was watching last night, and it's like, I don't even really think about it now. Like, whereas in August, even right up to the end of August and when they were getting ready for the season, it's like, that's what we were talking about. Are they even going to be able to make it? Like, are they going to make it to like week 2? And now I feel like week 2, forget it. Like, I'll be surprised if they have an outbreak, because it just seems like they have, not only have they figured it out, but credit to the players, maybe not so much the coach, but can the coaches just put the mask on? Like, come on, guys, even just, it's 3 hours out of your life, put the mask on. But the players seem to, to their credit, they obviously are taking it seriously. And it's almost like that thing happened with Clevenger and Zach Plesac with the Indians, and I think that was like so bad that it was like such an outrageous violation of the team rules that like you have not heard any stories like that really. Maybe was the one with Daniel House with the Rockets, and hey, there was an extenuating circumstance going on with that one, but. But the players themselves obviously are taking it seriously because it ultimately comes down to the individual, and everyone has to do their part and take and follow the rules. And if the players are doing it, then they're not going to get it, right? I mean, I think it comes down to that. If you're really taking it seriously, you can avoid getting it, and so credit to them, Erik. If I had told you at the end of August that we would be going into week 3 and there wouldn't be a single issue COVID related, would you have believed me, or would you have thought I was nuts?
Well, I would definitely the first part of it. I certainly expected to see at least some limited cases, and it's been a little surprising that there haven't been more. The bottom line is everyone's figuring out better how to deal with the situation and is becoming more responsible to help get us over this hump, right? And sure, the smaller schools, like Vic said, will have a little bit of difficulty, but that's where the schools themselves are going to have to step up and contribute to keep things running. We talk about how much money the leagues are losing, the conferences are losing, but you can't turn around and say, well, now they're making all that money, but we don't have any money to put toward the testing. It doesn't work like that. They're getting all that money, so put it where it needs to go right now. Get the players and the staff healthy enough to keep everything moving, or we're going to go back to square one, right? That means that the leagues themselves and the conferences themselves have to chip in a little bit more. So be it. I mean, they're signing, deals worth $450 million a year for broadcasting for, 15, 20 years. So, hey, the money's there. Use it where it needs to be used right now. Let's get over this hump, suck it up a little bit, and let's try to get past the difficulty and look for, 2021, 22 being better normal years.
Right. All right. Let's move into our last segment here. As we've said, Lakers. As far as I'm concerned, we should crown the Nuggets the Western Conference champions right now. They've won. They won the series last night because now they're down 3-1. And how dumb are the Lakers? They should have thrown the game last night and been 2-2, and then they would have had a chance. But they're up 3-1. They have no chance. Joking, obviously, but am I? Are we joking? I mean, do we think Denver has one more in them? Can they do it one more time? Vic, can they do it one more time? You've been kind of on the Nuggets train a little bit.
I have. I think so, man. The biggest thing I've noticed is they're not scared, right? And they're in every single game. And so I do think they have it in them. From the beginning, I thought this the series would at least go 6. And so I do have them winning the next game. I think they take care of business. Even last night, it was a game of a couple of calls. I don't know if you guys saw, but after the game, Mike Malone was kind of chirping a little bit. There's this play where it's a very close game, 1-possession game. Jamal Murray drives 1-on-1 against LeBron, and LeBron blocks it, but actually he didn't block it. He got all arm. And so there was 2-3 calls like that right in a row that could have swung the game.
So let me just interrupt. So LeBron commits an obvious foul, and they didn't call it. So good job by the Lakers then, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the whole point? That was why Red Auerbach is up in heaven nodding and smiling.
True.
There you go. You complain and then you get your call. And so maybe now we'll have to see if it goes back the other way.
That's what there you go. Half. LeBron was chirping about some calls, and of course the whistle kind of went their way the second half. Mm-hmm. And that's where again, the Nuggets are a young team. Their coach is a young guy. When it comes to this whole grand scheme of things, right? Vogel compared to Mike Malone has been around the game for a long time. LeBron, these guys have been around the game for a long time. So I'm kind of glad that Malone stepped up. He's probably going to get fined, right, after all of this stuff. But hopefully they do get some of those whistles, because I'm telling you, at the end of the day, when it comes to betting, the whole thing was a push. But when it comes to the game itself, it was, again, a lot closer. It was definitely a one-possession game, and it was for some of these calls. So to answer your question, long story short, I do think the Nuggets still have it in them. Eventually, I think it's going to be Lakers, obviously, because they're up 3-1. And if they blow this and the Nuggets can come back from this, man, I don't know. It might be the best comeback team of all time.
Oh, it has to be. Erik, you wrote about that yesterday. You wrote about the whole LeBron, and them complaining that LeBron's not getting the calls. So I guess there you go, right? I mean, it's right on script, right?
It's going to be interesting to see how the next game plays out. I mean, the Lakers really took the NBA staff to to court over the way they've been treating LeBron. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm more interested. I mean, I think the Lakers are going to end up with it, right? I think it's hard not to say they're going to go all the way. But I'm more curious to see how tonight's game is going to go. This is going to be a battle. There's no doubt. The Celtics are getting a little bit of an advantage right now, but you've got to give the Heat a lot of credit for getting to where they are.
I'm not looking forward to it. I will. I'm sure I will watch. What as Rick Pitino once said, Larry Bird's not walking through that door, folks. And it's funny. I have a very good friend, huge Celtics fan, and when they were getting ready for Game 7 in the previous round, we were talking about how now we're going to find out like how much this team and how much Tatum and Smart and Jaylen Brown, how much have they matured since they choked away that Game 7 against Cleveland 2 years ago in the Eastern Conference Finals, and because they were like kids, right? They were all still like in diapers, but they choked. I mean, because the moment was too big for them, and so we wanted to see. All right, now against Toronto in another Game 7 situation, have they made the leap? And they did. And now I'm back to wondering, well, maybe did they really or did they not? And so I want those are the guys I want to see how Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart react. I'm not so concerned about Kemba. It's a different deal for someone like him, or even for Hayward. Different deal. I want to see what those three guys do and what lessons have they learned, and can they finally be playing with the maturity that the Heat are playing with. I mean, to me, that's the thing. Like the Heat are just playing such smart basketball, but not just smart, but very composed. They're not getting rattled. They fall behind. Every time they fall behind, they immediately somebody's making, whether it's Harrow or Duncan Robinson or Dragic, somebody's making a play to get them right back in it. And then it's the Celtics that are like getting all freaked out. Like Celtics get a nice little lead, and as soon as Miami comes back, they like lose their minds. And so I have a bad. I'm not feeling it. I think the series ends tonight. I hate to say it. Look, I'm a Celtics fan, and I don't want to be like that, right? But I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. Eric, you're feeling it a little bit, right? But
here's thought for a while that the Heat
pump me up, Eric.
Pump
me up. Give me a reason to believe.
Here's the deal. You're like this. You're like this. The Celtics have nothing to lose tonight. Absolutely nothing. If they lose this game, they're going home. So they're going to come in and put everything they have on the line. That's, I think, is what could really save them tonight. They have absolutely nothing to lose. They're going to be more aggressive. They're going to be taking more shots. And they could actually pull out a win to stay alive. Will they win the series? Probably not. But they have absolutely no reason to just not go balls to the wall and give everything they have, leave it on the court.
All right. Well, I'll watch. I was just gonna watch my Padres falling apart as we speak. Like the euphoria, the Padre euphoria is definitely leveled off in a big way. And now with Clevenger being out, it's like, so I got nothing. I got a Padres team that's falling apart. I got a Celtics team that's falling apart. I got a Red Sox team that fell apart the day they traded away Mookie. So I got nothing. I need some college basketball. I need UConn back on the floor because I need some Big East. But Vic, what do you think? We haven't gotten your take on tonight.
No, I think bounce back today. And to Eric's point, they're going to leave it all on the court. From the beginning, I thought the series was going to be a battle. The one thing I want to throw to you, Jeff, is the coaching. And so I love Brad Stevens. He's a guy that I always wanted on the Bulls, and I've always been an admirer. But I think he's getting out-coached this series by Spo. And so we're seeing it game in and game out. And so I just want to throw it back to you. So to answer your question, I think the Celtics win today. But what I want to throw back to you is, do you think that we're going to see some adjustments from him, from Brad Stevens, and do you think he's been getting out-coached this series?
Everybody come close to your screen. Everybody lean in. Brad Stevens is overrated.
Ooh.
I've always kind of felt that way. No, I mean, he hasn't made any adjustments. What adjustments has he made? It's game 5.
Yeah, nothing.
I assume when that Butler played teams that played a zone at some point, right? And he wanted Butler, but this Miami zone is just, where's the adjustment? So I don't know. Brad Stevens, I don't know. I'm not a Brad Stevens truther the way most people in Boston are. So he needs to show me, again. He designs the best inbounds plays in basketball. Well, can I see him? How about when they matter? Where are they? So I don't know. I'm down on him. If that's what it's going to take for them to win, then they're dead. Because I don't feel he makes those adjustments that need to make. And prove me wrong, Brad. Prove me wrong. I want to be wrong. I want people to tell me that I'm wrong, please. But we'll see. Well, we'll see. And when we get back on Tuesday, hopefully we got. I'm trying to think. Would Game 7 be on Tuesday?
That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think it would be. They're going to probably. Game 6 would be Sunday, and Game 7 would be Tuesday, right?
Yep, that's what I'm seeing.
So hopefully when we come back, we'll be back on Tuesday to wrap up week 3, put our chef's kiss on week 3, and maybe we'll be talking about a couple of Game 7s. Wouldn't that be nice? And so there you go. So everybody, go into your weekend, enjoy your football, and hopefully you enjoy your basketball. And Erik, you guys, Vic, love you, man. That's the drugs. There's the drugs kicking in. The drugs are kicking in.
Feel better.
So I will. We're gonna wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Was that Vic?
No, I just said feel better, man. You're a trooper.
Oh yeah, we're doing better. We're doing better.
He's feeling better, all right.
Yeah, it's the drugs.
For people who are wondering, I had an attack of gout in my foot. I went David Wells old school with the gout in the foot, and so I'm getting through that. And part of the recovery has been a little bit of help, and as you're seeing now. So anyway, but on that note, we will let's say goodbye. Everybody, wave goodbye. Say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. And we will be back on Tuesday with week 3 wrap up. So for Vic and for Erik, this is Jeff. Thank you, and have a good weekend.
Take care.
See you guys.